We've got our fixed costs, and we're going to divide that by what? The selling price per unit minus the variable cost per unit. In other words, we're just transferring things to a per unit basis, or another way of saying that is the fixed cost divided by the contribution margin per unit. You with me on that? So in that context, let's take a look at our case study. We've now said Olympic, he makes his sales in dollars, but the units he sells is square yards of flooring, right? Selling price $5 a yard. Variable cost? $4.20. So what's contributed per yard? 80 cents. That's all we need to think in terms of, we don't need to worry about the percentage, do we? The 16% or any of that? Now we've got it in dollars, or in this case cents. 80 cents. And what do we wanted to know is, what's the break even? How many yards must be sold to break even? How many yards must be sold by a new salesperson if we pay him $20,000 a year salary? And how many yards must be sold if the selling price is, we're going to raise the price here. And this is a unilateral price increase, right? It's not like the cost goes up 10, so we raise the selling price 10. That wouldn't work anyway, would it? All right, so we want to answer those three questions. So let's go to the first one. Fixed costs are still what? Somebody? 151,820 divided by 80 cents, and it gets me, was it 189,775 what? Yards. And if I sell 189,776, what will I make? 80 cents. You with me? And it could be yards, it could be meals, it could be haircuts, it could be just about anything, right? Anything we can identify in a unit, a homogeneous unit. All right, number two. What do we want to know in number two? We're increasing the fixed costs by how much? $20,000. We probably ought to bump that up to 40 or 50, I suppose, but you're all sitting there wondering who'd work for $20,000 anyway. I understand that. But let's just use it as a for instance, okay? Because it doesn't matter what we set it at. It all comes out the same anyway. All right. So what'd you do? We got two ways to do it. Give me the, first, let's talk me through the long way. Take the 20, add it to what? The 151,820 to get 171,820. Divide it by 0.8 and get what? 214 something, 775. Isn't that right? And that's the total yards that have to be sold to cover the old fixed cost plus the new fixed cost. Subtract off the 189,775 and get how many yards? 25,000 yards. 25,000 yards. In other words, this person has to sell 25,000 yards, or, now they don't have to sell it personally. I guess if they're a salesperson they do, but this could apply to anybody. Doesn't have to be a salesperson. They have to sell, or by some of their actions, if they're not a salesperson, cause to be sold by someone 25,000 yards before this new person is an asset to the company as opposed to what? A liability. If we don't sell 25,000 more yards, will we make less profit? Yes. We will make less profit if we don't hit the bogey. It's been brought up in the past. Somebody said, well, why don't we pay them a commission? Wouldn't it be good to pay them a commission, whether they're at this low base or maybe a higher base or something? Yes, we could pay a commission, but we might not want to pay a commission until when? I'm not suggesting this is the way to do it, but I'm suggesting it's come up before. Let's not pay them a commission until when? Until they meet the fixed cost level to cover themselves. I'm not suggesting that's the way we should do it. I'm just suggesting that that's come up before. So divide by 8, we got 25,000 yards. That's the short way, isn't it? We just said, again, let's make the cup bigger. The fixed cost cup got bigger by how much? In other words, we'll do this in an incremental analysis, huh? An incremental analysis, 25,000 yards. But wait, there's more. Is 20,000 or 40,000 or 50,000 or whatever we're paying them as a salary, is that the real cost? What's the real cost of an employee?
Salary plus benefits.
And what do we have to add on to actually that the company's going to incur with that salary? What are the real costs?
35%.
FUCA, FICA, FIPA, you know, the F taxes. Lots of companies they have a number. What did you say, Randy?
30 to 35.
30 to 35%. Depending on the robustness of their benefits package, it could be anywhere up to 50. I remember once upon a time when I worked up in Alaska for Standard Oil. They had moved their office from Seattle up to Anchorage when just at the start of the North Slope oil kind of boom. And when you worked for Standard, every quarter, they flew you back to wherever you came from in the States, home for 2 or 3 weeks, and if you were working up on the slope as a worker, they did the same thing. Are their costs higher? I mean, that was part of the package, not to mention a lot of, quite a robust payment structure. Yeah, so they use 50. Whatever their base cost was, everything else was going to, because it was so much more expensive in those days to work in a remote environment, what was then a remote environment. So every company's got a number, but it's going to usually come between 20 and 35%. If we take 35%, what's the real fixed cost? It's not 20, it's what? 2 times 35 is what? 70, so we got 27,000. Wouldn't that be, if we use Randy's 35%, well, 27,000 divided by 8, somebody help me, what's that going to be? It's going to actually be 30 what?
33,750.
33,750. Before they're an asset to the company as opposed to a liability. Are those real costs? Or is that somebody just making that up? Those are real costs that the company's going to incur. Real costs that the company's going to incur. Oh, and by the way, with this situation right here, we bring them on. Our yards go up 20,000. We sell 20,000 more yards. So our sales went up. Do we make less money? Why? We didn't hit the bogey. The bogey was 33,750. We didn't hit the bogey. So we got a sales award for sales growth, but we made less money. The question is, do we want to focus on the top line or the bottom line? I think that takes us all the way back to the discussion of we eat off the bottom line. Isn't that right? And again, now we, instead of just guessing, we have the ability to what? Measure. We have the ability to measure this. And that's what we're really trying to do, is give people practical tools that will help them measure their world and use those measurements in a management format. All right? Now let's take a look at some pricing issues. What are we going to do in number 3? We're going to raise the price from $5 to what? $5.10. A price increase of how much?
2%.
10 cents on $5 is 1 on 50, which is 2%. And you remember how to calculate percentage, right? It's the difference divided by where you was, not by where you going, right? So it's 10 cents over $5. Price up 2%. Now, unilateral, meaning our variable cost is still what? $4.20. It hasn't changed. We didn't have a price increase. We didn't have a cost increase. We did make a price increase. So what's contributed now per yard? 90 cents. 151,820 divided by 90. Somebody? 168. 689. So the volume has gone down, hasn't it? How much down?
11%.
Well, if we take 189,775, which is our base, this is 21 something. 86, thank you. Divided by 189,775, and that's where the 11.1% comes from. Volume down 11%. Does that worth knowing? We can figure that out in any business if we've got the right cost data, can't we? What this says in words very simply is what? If your price goes up 2%, your volume can drop what? 11 before you're hurt. Okay, here's a scenario. You raise your price 2% and your volume goes down 8. Do you sell less? Yes, your volume went down 8. Not a trick question. Do you make more?
Yes.
Yes, because you beat the bogey. Scenario 2, you raise your price 2% and your volume goes down 14. Do you sell less? Yes. Do you make less? Yes. We have the ability now to measure where the trade-off point is, right? And in some businesses, what I've seen is really interesting because people are scared of raising their price. Everyone. It's not just you, it's not just me, it's everybody. We kind of grind our hands and wring our hands and grind our teeth over this whole issue of what will they do. It helps to get some perspective on what could they do. How much room for error do we have? There's not going to be that magic spot where you go over and everyone quits. You'll start to see some pushback. It's good to keep doing that and probably making this change at least once what? A year. Because we know that we've got 2, 3, 4, 5% inflation. Our costs are going to go up if we don't follow it. And by the way, if our cost goes up 10% and we raise our price, if our cost goes up a dime and we raise our price a dime, what happens to our margin as a percentage? It goes down even though our margin dollar stayed the same, didn't it? That's the answer. Now, question number 4. Question number 4. Don't turn the page. It's not there. We're going to do it now. We've looked at raising the price. The more insidious, the one we tend to cave into is what? Lowering the price. So here's what I want you to do now, right there somewhere on the fly. I want you, we raised it 10 cents. Let's now what? Lower it 10 cents. Let's lower it 10 cents. To what? $4.90. Well, isn't that the same 2% change? Only now it's a 2% price drop. So tell me now at $4.90. Let me just talk you through this. Maybe I can talk myself through it. How much is contributed now per yard when we lower the price to $4.90? It wasn't 90, it wasn't 80, which it originally was, then it went up to 90, now it's down to 70. Divide 0.7 into 151,820, and what will you get? Anybody?
106,274.
Divide 0.7 into 151,820. It's got to be 216,885 yards. Price decrease is 2%. We know that. It's the same 10 cents going the other way.
14%.
Now let's calculate the volume increase from 189,775 to 2 what, Pamela? 16,885. 27 divided by 189 roughly. What do you got, somebody?
14%.
Greg got 14. What'd you get?
14.
14.3 or something like that. Is that right? Now the interesting thing here is the little word we have to add that has, it's kind of a subtle little word, but it makes all the difference. This one says if the price increases from 5 to 510, the volume can drop 11%. This one says, in a more insidious way, if the price decreases 2%, the volume must increase 14, not 11. So now, you drop your price because you want to do more volume. You drop your price 2% and your volume goes up 13. Do you sell more? Yes, you sell more. The volume went up 13. Do you make less? Yeah, because you didn't beat the bogey. If it goes up, if you drop it 2% and it goes up 18, then you beat the bogey. Unless, suppose you drop it 2% and it goes up 14. You drop it 2% and the volume goes up 20%. Well, you win. Is there a possible way you could snatch defeat from the jaws of victory here? What if you're operating at 90% of capacity and your volume goes up 20% more? Then what happens? What's going to have to go up? Your fixed costs are going to have to increase. Is it possible that that fixed cost increase that you didn't count on could eat up all of that 6% differential and then some, and you could actually come out behind again anyway? There's a whole lot of ways to lose if you don't keep your eyes open. The best way I know how to do that is to know your costs. Know your contribution margin percentage and treat profit as what? A fixed cost. Target it. Figure out how much you want to make. Now, what I'd like to do is summarize on our cups, because our goal is to make more profit, isn't it? So even though it's break even, let's summarize. Let's go back to our cups. Pull your cup. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to list at least 4 ways to make more profit. Those are the only ways I know to put more profit in the cup. And the ones we choose will have a lot to do with our marketing strategy, won't they? They'll be in sync, hopefully, with our marketing strategy. What do you know? Well, what do you know if you happen to be in a market where you can do all 4 of those? What's going to happen? Yaha. Hold her newt, she's heading for the rhubarb. This is going to be a great thing. Every business, and when people learn about it, we'll go through the same maturing cycle that every industry goes through, unless you don't tell them. I've always heard the people who know usually ain't saying much. They're just doing what? Showing up at the bank every day, making a deposit. What do you know if you look at all 4 of these and you can't do any of them? Well, you know you can't make any more profit. Now, if you're already profitable, it means you can't make any more. If you can't do any of them and you're losing money, you have a serious challenge. You've got to somehow, if you can't change any of those, what's happening? The ship is sinking. Now, this nautical concept of going down with the ship, it's overrated. Rats know. Get off the ship. But in order to know whether to get off the ship and get in the lifeboat, we've got to have data, we've got to have tools, and we've got to have a process. Profit Mastery gives us all of those.